Greetings and welcome to Sophie's sourdough baking tutorial 101. What you need for this tutorial is some ripe and ready to use sourdough starter. Mine is called Little Dough, and I fed him about 12 hours before starting this tutorial. So I fed him last night at 12 midnight. I fed him, so he's now ready to use in an hour. But first I'm going to make the autolyse dough. You can see he's all bubbly and like almost ready to use. It smells vinegary as well, in a good way, obviously. So what you need for this particular sourdough recipe is we're going to make a 78% hydration dough, which means that we'll be using the ratio of water to flour is there's about for every 100 grams of flour there would be 78 grams of water. So it's a sort of average hydration percentage for a sourdough, but it just means that the more water there is, the harder it is to work with. So that's why we're going for an average amount of water to add to the dough. So what you need to start off with is we're going to make the autolyse dough, which needs to have 1 hour to autolyse without the starter in it for approximately an hour. So what you will need is 350 grams of filtered warmish water, and you should put your finger in it and it should feel just slightly warmer than your skin. And then I like to use 350 grams of Dove's Farm strong white bread flour. And let's weigh that out. Oh, shit. Okay, you want 350 grams. Nice, that's about right. And then we add this to the nice big mixing bowl. And then I like to add quite a bit of wholemeal to mine to make it healthier and easier for your digestive system. Actually, it doesn't make things easier, but it's just nicer for it to be a bit wholemeal. So I like to use strong wholemeal bread flour and use about 105 grams of wholemeal. Oh, damn it. I literally got it like right on the 105 and then it just spilled everywhere. It's classic. Okay. Okay, and then you just want to give it a little mix with your hands. Yeah, just get it all incorporated. Just so it's nice and evenly distributed, all the grains and all the... Okay, that's probably enough. Right, okay. So now you've got that, we want to add the water and just create a shaggy lump of a dough. So just, add that in and like, just don't be shy, just like, add it all in. Nice warm water. And then just, you get right in there. Just get your hand like in there and give it a good old mix. Yeah, listen to that sound. I'm just going to give it a little squeeze just to kind of get it all mixed. And yeah, we're not looking to develop any gluten. We're just looking to kind of get the dough, all the flour and the water mixed. And then during the autolyse process, that's when we let the gluten strands develop and allow the gluten. Yeah, that's the whole point of the autolyse process. So we'll leave it for an hour and then you'll see it will start to be beginning to be a bit more elastic, and then after an hour that's when we'll add the starter. It's still quite sticky, but that is fine. You just want to create kind of a shaggy lump. Right. I feel like you'll have to cut some of this out because it's just me getting the dough off my fingers. Right, okay. And then, now that we've got our shaggy lump, we'll just cover it with a... just want to get as much of this dough off as possible. Okay, now... wash it all off. And then I just get one of these, like, you can get like a plastic bag or something, but I like to use these just to, and it's actually got some holes in it so that the dough can breathe a little bit. Where's the holes? I think they're on this side. It doesn't really matter. But I just like to do that. And then we're going to leave that to autolyse for an hour, at which point we will add the starter. See you in a jiffy. Hello and welcome back to Sophie's Sourdough Baking Tutorial 101. So we've left the dough to autolyse for about an hour, and now let's take it out of the bag. And let's have a look. Now you can see it's already started to get more elasticy, and that is because the gluten strands have started to develop. So now we're ready to add our starter. So let's take little dough who's ripe and ready to be used, and let's measure out. So for this recipe I'll be using 100 grams of the ripe sourdough starter. So let's measure him out. Oops, that is way too much of little dough. And let me just get rid of something. Thank you. Basically, the more starter you use, actually, yeah, so the less starter you use, the longer the fermentation time, because it takes longer for the starter to eat up the eat up the dough and all of the gluten and stuff in the autolyse dough. But we're going to use 100 grams. That should be enough. And what you'd want to do is just take your starter and on the outside. And you just want to scrape all of the starter into your bowl and just spread it all over the dough like this. And now you want to just really get in there and give it a good squeeze, and actually fold it over. You can fold it over into the, and you don't have to worry about being too gentle at all. Just get it all mixed like this. Get it really incorporated, and yeah, just squeeze it. This process, you should be pretty thorough at this point because, sorry, I can sort it. You should be pretty thorough at this point because you want to make sure the starter is evenly distributed like this. Just keep squeezing it, and you'll notice the dough started to become a lot more smooth and sticky. Just keep folding it over like this. Okay, so that looks pretty incorporated to me. You basically just want a nice uniform distribution of the starter within the dough. There we go. So now we're just going to let that sit for another half an hour covered with the bag, and then at which point we'll add the salt. See you later. Hello and welcome back. So now we've let the dough sit for half an hour since adding the starter, and you can see it's getting very nice and just like elasticy. Yeah. So now it's time to add the salt, and what we're going to do is just take 11 grams of salt, sacks of fine sea salt, and it's better to use, so the best kind of sea salt to use is fine sea salt, and you want it to be sea salt basically. Not sure why, just all recipes use sea salt. So now you just want to take this sea salt and sprinkle it all over the dough.
How much salt?
11 grams. 11 grams of salt. Now you want to just give it, and you can kind of wet your hands a bit. If you ever find that it's difficult to work with high hydration doughs, just give your hands a bit of a, you know, bit of moisture, and fold the dough over. And then do the squidgy thing again. Give it a good squeeze. Yeah. Feels really nice, and it's very relaxing, very therapeutic, you know, working with some nice, soft, pliable dough. Just like, you don't want to feel like any grains of salt in there. You really want to get in there. And this process might take you like a few minutes. Like, I can still feel there's quite a few grains in there. And then after this, we will be doing a bit of what kind of replaces the kneading element of making bread. So you can actually like leave out the step. So yeah, you don't have, this method is, so this next step is kind of like optional-ish. I've done it before where I've like missed out the step by mistake, and I've still got good bread. But if this is next step is where you are building strength and elasticity into your dough. And I don't think it's called, the slap and fold method is where you take the dough out and slap it against the surface, but that's quite a rough way of handling your dough. This other method is called the roubourd method, which is named after a French baker, and it's a lot more like just gentle and less chaotic than, you know, taking the dough out and slapping it. Like less aggressive. You want to be nice to your dough. You want to be kind to it, but firm and fair. Yeah, firm and fair. Exactly, Cece. Firm and fair. So I'll show you what I mean by this roubourd method now. So now the salt is nicely incorporated, I'm going to do this roubourd method for about 5 minutes. You can do it for like up to 10 minutes, but it's up to you to kind of see like how the dough is developing and like whether you feel like you're building enough strength into it. So all you're going to do is you're going to scoop up your dough, stretch it out and slap it down, and you just keep doing this like this. And you just kind of, you don't want to burst. You'll feel like air starting to like develop within it, and yeah, you want to basically scoop it up because you're bringing air like underneath it and allowing it to get all of those air bubbles. It's just encouraging like all of this gluten development, and I can already feel like it started to get more smooth. And this is very good for your arms if you want to get like one really buff arm. This is a good way to do it. I feel like that's going to happen to me at some point. And so after this, I'm not going to show you the whole process of me doing this because it's going to take me a few minutes. So I will next see you when we will be doing our first. So once I've done this, I'm going to let it rest for 15 minutes and then we'll do the first set of stretch and folds. So goodbye. Yes, hello and welcome back. So now that we've let it rest for 15 minutes, we are going to perform our first set of stretches and folds, and this is the way that your dough can improve its elasticity and also build strength in your dough. So we're going to do we're going to do 6 sets of stretches and folds, the first 3 having 15-minute intervals in between them, and just turning off that drippy tap because it's annoying. So yeah, the first 3 will be performed with 15-minute intervals, and then this last 3 will be 30 minutes in between each. So that will bring us to a total of, that would be 2 hours from now, I believe. That might be wrong, but you could do the math. Anyway, so to do your first set of stretch and folds, just wet your hands a little bit so it doesn't stick to you, and you just want to take the dough and pull it up from one side like this, and you can see, and then give it a good old stretch and then fold it over like so. Oh, there's a hair in it and it's probably one of mine. And then rotate the bowl 180 degrees, do the same again. Try not to tear the dough as well, that's quite important. Just give it a good stretch and fold it over again. And then rotate the bowl 90 degrees and repeat on both sides. So give it a good old stretch, like so. Fold. Like this. You fold it over. And now we're going to cover this again, let it sit for another 15 minutes, then we'll do our second one, and then another 15 minutes rest, third one, then 30 minutes, fourth one, 30 minutes, fifth one, 30 minutes, sixth one, and then we'll move on to the next stage, the bulking process. Hello and welcome back to the sourdough baking tutorial. So we've left the dough after the stretch and fold process to bulk ferment for another 2 hours approximately, but you can adjust this time according to the ambient temperature of your room. But you should look at your dough and see like how it's changed. So you can see it's risen, it's almost doubled in size, and you can see that there's some like bubbles on the surface and it's starting to come away at the edges, and that's when you know when it is ready. So we're going to just scrape it out of the bowl like this, and you can see it's coming away from the sides very nicely, and it should be all light and fluffy like a feathery pillow. So we're just gonna tip that out and just let it come away slowly, like be gentle with it. You don't want to scare it. Come on, little dough. You can see it's trying to stick to the bowl a little bit, but that's very normal, don't you worry.
You meant to put flour on the surface?
No, you do not need to put flour on the surface, because we'll then use what's called a dough scraper to build tension within the dough.
But it's very elasticy.
Yeah. Okay. Right, and then where's my dough scraper gone? Oh no. And then you get what is called a dough scraper. And now we're going to, this is an important step in the shaping. So this is the pre-shape before we do the actual shaping and place it into our floured proofing basket. So what we're going to do is just kind of do a sort of sweeping motion and shape our dough. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wet this a little bit as well, because it can still sometimes stick. We're just going to take it like this and scrape it up, and just be
confident with it, because that is the key, and just kind of roll it into a ball like this. And just, you got to work quickly, but also just try not to degas the dough, because that would be bad. And you'd have to start all over again. You don't want that after all of that work.
Quite hard.
It is, trust me, it requires a lot of practice.
There's a lot of steps. I didn't realise there were so many steps.
So now we've kind of built, I did that quite badly actually, but now we're going to just let it sit for a while on the counter and let it sit for about 15 minutes, and then we'll do the actual shaping. See you in a mo. Hello and welcome back to the next stage of the sourdough baking process. So it's been just sitting on, just bench resting for about 15 minutes, just to let it, you know, like rise and get a bit comfortable on the bench. And now what we're going to do is we're going to sprinkle the surface of the dough with a bit of flour, because this is going to be the form during the shaping process. This is going to be like the dry side, the like dry kind of exterior, and it will be like wet on the inside, but I'll show you what I mean in a second. So what we're going to do is maybe just add a bit more flour to the surface. Nice. So what we're going to do is you just want to gently just add a bit of water to this side of the thing, this dough scraper, and what we're going to do is we're going to just pick it up like this and just kind of this, and then we're going to flip it over. So now you can see this side is like still very wet and moist, and we want it to stay like this because now we're going to do the shaping, and this part is also very important to continue to build tension in our dough. So I'm going to show you the easy way of creating a nice ball, a nice sourdough ball, which we'll then place in our floured banneton, aka the proofing basket. And I use Dove's Farm organic brown rice flour to flour my banneton. And you don't want to use regular flour because that contains gluten, and that will just go all soggy and, you know, stick to the dough. So use brown rice flour, that's your best bet. So now time for the shaping process of this dough. So you're just gonna stretch out a bit and then flip it like this. Just like stick it down a bit like that. And then take the other side and flip it again over like that. So now we've got a nice like sausage shaped bit of dough. Now we're going to just rotate it like this, and then we're going to roll it up again on this side. So you're just going to push it in like that and push it in and roll it, push it, roll it in again like this, and keep doing that until you've got a nice shape like this. And now if you were making a batard, or aka a more oval shaped loaf, you probably just place it in the banneton like this, but because we're making a ball, we're just gonna shape it into a sort of a nice round shape, and you can use your dough scraper like so. Just shape it a bit. Nice, and there we go. I think it might be a bit, yeah. So that is our nicely shaped, it's quite badly shaped actually, sourdough ball. So now we're going to take the banneton and we're going to just dust this with a bit of flour, and now we're going to just lift it underneath like so, and then flip it like this and place it dry side down in the banneton like so. And now we can see it's ready to just go and slow proof in the fridge for 16 to 20 hours. I like to do mine about 18 hours in the fridge because that's a nice sweet spot to kind of let your dough slow ferment overnight. So now we're just going to sprinkle the top with some more rice flour, because if it rises we don't want it to stick to the towel that's going to like go over it, like that. And then we're just going to take this sort of cloth thing, cover it over the banneton, and then where's my... Oh, I can see it. What is it? This is this bag. Oh. Now we're going to just put this bag over it. And so it's nice and sealed, and then we're going to place it in the fridge for about 18 hours. There's going to be no space. There's no space in the fridge. I will do that once we stop filming, but yeah, once you've placed it in the fridge for 18 hours, then we're going to bake it in the morning, so see you then. Good morning and welcome to the second day of our sourdough baking process. So our sourdough has been slow fermenting in the fridge for about 17 hours now. So we are going to now preheat our cast iron Dutch oven in the oven for about an hour so it can get to the maximum temperature possible. I use a 3.2 quart pre-seasoned cast iron Dutch oven from Kitchley. So what we're going to do is we're going to place our oven in our actual oven an hour at pretty much the maximum temperature that our oven will go. So yes, let's leave that in there for an hour and then we can start with the process of scoring our dough. Hello and welcome back. We're now ready to take our slow proof bread dough out of the fridge and get it ready for baking. So the next part of the process is that we want to empty the bread onto the plate. So I've just got a round of greaseproof paper on a plate, ready to place my dough on it and invert onto the plate. And then we'll score it and place it in the Dutch oven. So first let's see our special proofed bread dough. You can see that it's risen overnight and it's kind of bouncy. That means it's ready to be baked. So what we're going to do is we can just do this. And then flip it. And this is the result. We can see that it's got a nice spiral pattern from the banneton. So now, the technical bit of the scoring, which can be a bit tricky, but with more practice, you'll soon get it. So I'm going to do a single curved score, along with a pretty little wheat design on it. So I'll show you how I do this. So you always want to have the blade at a slight angle. You want it to be about 45 degrees to the surface of the dough. So I'm going to just start like this and make a bit of a curve. Sometimes the dough can be a bit sticky. You just want to use the lame. This is called a lame and it's very useful for scoring the bread. You can see sometimes it's a little bit tricky, but you can go over the score a little bit, like so. You want to make sure that the score is deep enough too. Now that's the main score to help it expand, the expanding score. Just gonna make it a bit more, there we go. And then we're going to do a little pattern, and we don't want this to be too deep at all. We don't want this one to expand. We just want this to be the pattern on the dough. Lovely. And, oh, just as a quick tip, I like to spritz my dough with a bit of water before it goes into the oven. So now let's get our Dutch oven out of the oven. Come over here, come over. So we'll open up our pan and we'll very quickly take our dough and slide it in. Like so. And then finally give it a little spritz. Because this will help create more steam within the pan. Then pop the lid on to our oven, and then back in the oven we go. Careful. And then we want that to bake at about 250 degrees for about 20 minutes to allow the bread to expand. And then we will take the lid off after 20 minutes and let it form the lovely crust for another 20 minutes. See you in 20 minutes. So it's been 20 minutes. Now time to take off the lid. Oh, look at that bread. So now that it's risen, we'll just leave it in there for another 20 minutes at 240 to let the crust develop. Oh, by the way, just a tip for you here. During the last 20 minutes of baking, I like to rotate the pan about 90 degrees every 5 minutes, just so an even crust develops. So let's do that now. Lovely. So yeah, if you're baking it for 20 minutes with the lid off, you do this about 4 times throughout the last part of the baking process. So I'll next see you when the bread is done. And here we have it, our wonderful artisan sourdough bread. Make sure to wait at least 6 hours before cutting into the crust, or else the bread will go gummy, and no one wants that. Anyway, have a wonderful day and happy baking.